everyone. Thanks for watching our Zoom video over our DEI comprehensive plan over Lululemon. I'm Hunter.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Pat.
So I'm gonna start off by giving you guys a overview and background over Lululemon. Lululemon got their start in 1998 by their founder, Chip Wilson, who was an entrepreneur. And he noticed that there was a gap in stylish yet high performance clothing for the yoga industry. Um, Lululemon started off as a design studio by day and then turned into a yoga studio at night. And then they opened their first standalone store in the year 2000. But this space was just more than a store. It was a place where people were encouraged to try yoga and embrace a lifestyle of health and wellness. They don't just sell clothes, but they're building a lifestyle brand. Lululemon has established a very loyal following of consumers. It's the brand that you think of when you think of athleisure, which is like something that was new. And then they also created what some people call like a Lululemon cult. And part of their vision statement is they wanted to create a community hub where people could learn and discuss the physical aspects of healthy living, mindfulness, and living a life of possibility. And then some current state of Lululemon. In 2007, they went public on NASDAQ. They're a worldwide brand that has a strong online presence. And they made themselves a luxury brand. So basically, people pay a premium for that exclusivity feel of being in Lululemon. And not everyone is just out here wearing Lululemon. And then they've moved into designing from just yoga, but they're also designing for running, cycling, and training for men and women. So now to talk about some of the diversity issues and challenges that Lululemon is facing, one being their founder, Chip Wilson, and then number two being product inclusivity. So the first issue is their founder, Chip Wilson. He has been known to make various comments in the media or just in general about various things. The first one being that he made a racist comment when he was first coming up with the name of the company, saying that it was funny to hear Asian people, Japanese people try to pronounce the name Lululemon because it contains three L's. And he thought it would be like funny, but it wasn't. And it just was a joke that didn't land and at the expense of an entire ethnic group. And then the next few comments related to Chip made was his prejudice towards people's size and weight, which is sizeism. The first being back in 2013 when the company had to pull black yoga pants, their main product, off the shelves for it being too sheer or see-through. It was a move that cost the company nearly $60 million in sales, but he just said that the product doesn't work for some women's bodies. And then another quote from Chip being fat phobic regarding making bigger sizes, plus size products, and you having to use extra fabric to do this. He called it a money loser for sure. I understand their plight, but it's tough. And then other comments that he made was that the brand wasn't for everyone, that he doesn't want certain people coming into the store. And then even when Chip was no longer the CEO of the company and the company was trying to move forward and on from him, he expressed his dislike for the company's whole diversity and inclusion thing and stating that the people that they were using in the ads now looked unhealthy, sickly, and non-inspirational. The comments that he has made go against what the company has claimed to be their goals and vision of being a community hub and creating real relationships with their guests. And then it also just goes against, like, you can't really create a hub if you're trying to exclude people from even wearing your product overall. And then lastly, product inclusivity. It's kind of had a trickle down effect from his leadership and is shown throughout the company as the company was sizest. They did not offer a wide range of sizing options. And in their marketing ads, they did not feature a wide range of body types. They used to only carry sizes 0 through 14. They've increased to size 20 now, but the process to get there was very long. And it was kind of also like a weird thing to do because for a while there was a group of people that wanted to get into Lulu, but they couldn't because Lulu refused to make these products in certain sizes. And Lulu's just passing up on revenue and sales at this point, or at that point.
All right. So I am going to talk about our four recommendations for Lululemon. And the first is going to be separating from Chip Wilson and continuing to separate. So Chip Wilson's comments, obviously, as we've talked about, have been extremely controversial and have had a negative impact on Lululemon as a whole. And unfortunately, many people still believe he's like very involved. He's no longer the CEO, and they have a new CEO, Tom McDonald. But every time Chip Wilson makes a comment, it's Lululemon founder, anything relating to him, and all of his comments come back for that. So, what we need to do for Lululemon is to push forward and publicize more that he is no longer the CEO, and to keep pushing forward that he's no longer really involved in decision making and daily decision making with the company. And every time he has a comment that people deem controversial, you put out a very strong statement condemning the comment and continuing separating and emphasizing that he's no longer associated. The issue with all this is that even though he's no longer involved in day-to-day operations, he is still the biggest shareholder of the company. So you can't separate yourselves entirely from him in that way. So something that you could do to pretend that is much riskier, frankly, is you could go through a shareholder activist program to get him out of the company. You could have shareholders on your board and other large shareholders use media pressure, threats of litigation, and other ways to try to push him out, get him out of the way. But again, like I said, that's really, really dangerous because he could not be very responsive to that idea and could come back in full force, fighting, swinging, and slamming the company. Our second recommendation is going to be more support and funding for the idea department. The idea department was born in 2020 and focuses on DEI projects and other social justice purposes. And we'll go more into their function in a little bit for our case study section and how that kind of came to be. But it was born in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement and the death of George Floyd. So currently, the department is allocated a $5 million budget with $3 million to spend on social impact programs. And while that number may seem great on the surface, when you dig into it, their market cap is 40.91 billion. Even doubling or tripling that amount allocated would basically be a rounding error for this company, and it would go a long way to helping the department do more substantive things, which we'll talk about later as well. Because currently, mainly what this department is doing seminars, education, trainings. That's their main function. So what you could use this extra funding for could be to, okay, since you're already putting these seminars and trainings on, you could offer a cash prize or incentive at the end of the year to employees who might attend 5 trainings, 7 trainings, whatever number you think. You could also use the extra funding to support local and national diversity efforts for the company. Recommendation number 3 is going to be design and promote more products for plus size individuals and those with disabilities. So as we talked about earlier, Lululemon has a history of making certain customers feel not included and unwelcome. And just in January, Chip Wilson was interviewed in Forbes and said, "You have to be clear. You don't want certain kinds of customers coming in." Hunter already referenced that, and that made many headlines. And like I said earlier, if you go around and look, you'll see Lululemon founder Chip Wilson says they don't want certain customers in. So this is a problem. They need to promote more of their products for plus size individuals and those with disabilities. There are anecdotal reports of the brand cutting back on plus size clothing and making them online only. So making these clothes readily available would fix how these communities would feel about the brand and open up a whole new market. An associate professor of fashion studies at Columbia College Chicago said 67% of US women are considered plus size, but the largest size many retailers offer is a 12. Making sure that these product offerings are available in store would open up many streams of revenue for the company. And then you need to have more campaigns featuring plus size models and models with disabilities. So Lululemon had a whole campaign for this last Olympic cycle that centered around Team Canada's Paralympic team. And I think that is the kind of campaign that Lulu needs to focus on doing more and would be really beneficial for the brand.
So as we mentioned a little bit before, we're going to do a deep dive into the idea department. So as we discussed, the Lululemon launched its idea department in 2020 to respond to the internal and external pressures to basically improve their D&I situation. This marked a huge turning point for the company because they're aiming to address challenges within its culture, but also reflect broader societal shifts. And IDEA stands for inclusion, diversity, equity, and action. And it was designed to address their flaws and create actionable progress. You can go to the next slide. So the program is led by CEO Calvin McDonald, along with leadership and the global head of ideas, Stacia Jones. McDonald brings an expertise in growing and scaling and brand engagement, while Jones, on the other hand, actually has a decade of experience in DE&I at Abercrombie and Finch. She increased diversity there by over 400% and received accolades like the EDI Lead of the Year. And together, they're trying to tackle some of the idea issues across all facets of Lululemon. So the main principles that the mission aims to achieve is accountability, so embedding D&I within teams, dialogue, encouraging open conversations between underrepresented groups in leadership, training, which is offering allyship programs to foster inclusivity, talent diversity, which is attracting and developing diverse talent, and social impact, which is partnering with communities and driving measurable change. So some of the backlash from this program has been that it wasn't all that it was promised to be. Despite its ambitions, employee feedback on the idea program has been mixed. Some view it as performative, and there's a lack of genuine leadership commitment. Complaints have even emerged that one former manager told an employee to ride the wave of DE&I efforts until the priorities eventually shifted. And recently, there's also been litigation filed by shareholders who argue that the program has failed to address racism in hiring and promotion, and thus has actually defrauded the public. And the examples that have been raised are lack of Native American, Hispanic, and Pacific Islander in high visibility positions. So in 2023, there have been some convincing metrics. Probably the highlight and the key one is 100% pay equity has been achieved across the organization. They have a 76% index inclusion score, which is actually among the highest of all the companies that were surveyed for this. And they spend $42 million a year with diverse suppliers. On the other hand, some metrics fall short. 27% diversity in director plus roles, which is way short of their goal, and only $97,000 donated to communities in need through the People's Network, which, as Matt highlighted earlier, is very, very small compared to their market cap and how much revenue they bring in on a yearly basis. So just a strategic analysis of the idea department as a whole. So it was designed to adapt to evolving consumer priorities. So for example, 76% of Gen Zers, 72% of millennials consider diversity and inclusion important in a company that they're interacting with. Boomers are less than half in that. So you can see that the demographics of consumers is really changing. They've done a great job with rolling out new and inclusive product lines with athletic hijabs, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and they received high praise on, what the setup in stores was and what it meant to that community. And then managing new and existing stakeholders is something that they're going to have to balance going forward. So one of their goals is to increase supplier diversity, but initiatives like these actually sometimes hurt existing stakeholders. For example, they had to close one of their existing supplier locations where 128 employees were actually laid off. So part of that, going forward is managing existing employees, and you have to be transparent and, always think of the people first when you're making these choices. The bottom line is authenticity needed from the top down. That starts at, the CEO level and the head of the idea department, and they really need to believe in this mission if they want to see it through. And that's our presentation. Thank you so much.